Total amount that I had in my pocket when I was coming was 200 pounds. Okay, and when I got my bag got stolen in the library, so it meant that even the 200 pounds was stolen. So really I did start out, absolutely on the minus, not even on zero.
Hey guys, welcome to Meet the Owner, where we're all about making an impact through entrepreneurship. The interview you're about to watch is with Yemi. Yemi is the founder of Caris, the training company. Yemi moved to the UK with nothing and has been able to excel in his career and leads an established business. Guys, please make sure to subscribe to our channel below so that you won't miss out on any future interviews. So welcome, Yemi.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Great. So Yemi, if you just start by telling us a bit about your background and your upbringing.
Background on my upbringing. Well, I was born in Nigeria, in the middle belt towards the south of Nigeria. I schooled in Nigeria, primary school, secondary school, university in Nigeria. After I finished in Nigeria, there were opportunities were becoming limited in Nigeria, with a critical mass of millions of graduates coming in at around the same time. And I'd studied microbiology, so I wanted something a bit more practical. So I applied to study food technology, which is food manufacturing technology, at the University of Teesside. So in 2004, I came to England. I studied food technology at the University of Teesside. And then straight on, I went into the world of work, first working on a 3-year significant project with the University of Wales then, up in North Wales. And then I went on to work for a certification body in the down south, where I trained up in certification and auditing. And in 2012, I started Caris Management Systems, where we provide consultancy and auditing services. And we also did some training. In 2016, we established Caris, the training company, as a bit of a separate entity from Caris, the management systems. And we kind of run both of those together today as the core job that I kind of do. So I'm a budding entrepreneur, emerging entrepreneur, so to speak. Yes.
Okay, that's modesty speaking. So let's take you back. Let's take you back to Nigeria. So what was it like being a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up when you were a kid?
Nigeria was fun. I don't think there's any place more fun to be a kid than on the streets of Nigeria. My mom worked for the local polytechnic there, so we lived on the campus, so we were quite in a safe environment growing up. I initially wanted to be, in the early stages, I wanted to be a lawyer, because it's amazing the way the mind of a child works, you see. My mother had like 6 siblings, and all of them were professionals. So, so the first one was an accountant, the next one was a doctor, third one was an engineer, the fourth one was a PhD in biology. My mother was into public administration, and the other one was a lawyer, and the last one was an architect. So I didn't even think that I had any other choice apart from selecting which was my favorite uncle or auntie and doing the profession that they were doing. So initially I wanted the law, because my mother's immediate younger brother, he was quite a scary figure and all of that. And I thought, oh yeah, I want to be a lawyer, So But of course, the way the educational system is structured in Nigeria, you make the decisions to go either the route of science or the route that will lead you to law by what is the equivalent of year 9 in the UK. So but at that time, it was a cool thing to be in the science classes. So I didn't necessarily want to be in the art classes. You know, people, for whatever ignorant reason, thought you weren't intelligent enough to be in the sciences. That's why you go to the arts. Whereas you should go to the arts because you want to study law, you know, or something like that. But by then I changed my interest to kind of study medicine. So therefore, I went into the science classes. But at that time in Nigeria, the universities were fewer than they are now. The number of people seeking to get admission and it used some people, we had this entrance exam called JAMB, and some people used to do it almost 7 years before they get admission. So, but I was lucky. I went to a decent school. I was reasonably bright. So really, I got in at the first attempt, okay? But even though I had enough scores, I wasn't, in Nigeria, you still needed to kind of know a little bit of people, except your results was really particularly that good. So I was offered microbiology to start with, and said, okay, in the second year I could cross over into medicine. But that was how I went into microbiology, never crossed over back into medicine because the university changed the rules that you can no longer cross over now. So the option was either I go and start again, which I would still be all right because my classmates were like 5, 6 years older than me, generally speaking. And of course, most people were at least 3 years older, 2, 3 years older. So I ended up going into microbiology, and that's how I studied microbiology. And I like to say that I'm still grateful that I didn't end up studying medicine, because probably the investment you put into studying medicine is so much and so hard that it would have been difficult to come out of it to do anything different. You understand? Having studied microbiology, it allowed me to chart a course based on my individual circumstance, and then I got tired of microbiology. I wanted something more practical. I went into food manufacturing. I saw that the manufacturing was a bit heavy. I focused on the quality assurance, which was my initial love. Then from the quality assurance, I went into the auditing, and then into the consultancy and the training. So it allowed me the flexibility to kind of go for what I wanted as more information emerged. I have a friend who was my classmate in high school and studied medicine. He's relocated to Canada now, and he just can't be flexible to do anything else, you know. So he's just having to kind of find a way to get back into practicing medicine in Canada. And Canadian, you have to convert your qualification to be able to do that in Canada. And he said to me, Yemi, really, you know, I don't have any other skill. You know, so in some ways I don't regret that, but that was how I found my way into what I did. The long version, sorry.
Okay. No. Okay. So when you were doing microbiology, so at that point, did you already know that one day you wanted to go into business?
No. When I was in Nigeria, the concept of business was not even at all in my head. It was almost a perception of business was, you know, you always thought of it's like when people now say that, oh yeah, Trump behaves like that because he's a businessman. That was the kind of mindset I had. There was a little bit of scrupulousness linked with being a business person. But that was a function of the environment in which I grew in which people got businesses and contracts either by having to first put down some money, or you know, what we now understand to be networking. We kind of looked down negatively on it and always believed that there was always some cash exchanges. So really at that stage in Nigeria, no. I did have 1 or 2 people who were successful entrepreneurs that I looked at and I wanted to be like them. But it's interesting the thinking at that stage, because one of them was a very successful industrialist. He had a biscuit factory. He had many factories, and tens of businesses. But the only way I looked at him, because he was married to my auntie, I looked
Yeah.
at more because he actually studied quantity surveying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really, that meant quantity surveying was one of the choices of the courses I wanted to learn. Not, I didn't decipher the fact that quantity surveying was quite different from his entrepreneurship. So no, at that stage, I do not think I imagined myself as an entrepreneur.
Okay. So so at the point that you made the decision that you're going to come to the UK, so what was the process now for you to actually come to the UK?
Oh, that wasn't an easy process, and sometimes when you hear all the Brexit arguments and the immigrants, how they're coming here because of NHS and all of that. Sometimes you kind of you just smile at the ignorance of it all, because it's not a straightforward process to come, and it wasn't. My family was not. I mean, the process of coming to the UK involves having some significant finance. Because you have to demonstrate to the Home Office that you have enough funds to fund your studies, and that even when you are returning, even that apart from the studies, you have enough funds to live well, within Nigeria. And the kind of funds we're talking about for the studies was, at that time, about £8,000 a year, and you needed to have it in cash in your account. So, which is not true of most people living in England, generally speaking. Just 8,000 unaccounted funds waiting in the account. But that's the expectation, and it was even more than 8,000. You needed to have another maybe 5,000 for covering your expenses and all of that. So yeah, but you needed to get that and prove all of that, and you needed to apply. You get the admission first, then apply to the Home Office, and then you actually go and submit your passports, and then you get an interview, and then you go back and wait and see whether you're successful. If you're lucky to be successful, then you get a visa. Only after that can you go and get a ticket, okay, for you to start planning.
So what was what did it mean to you at that point? I think the thought of moving to the UK, what did it mean to you?
I think the biggest thing it meant to me, and honestly, was just now that it was a bit like, now I have the path to achieve my dreams. Now I can dream and know that I can have the chance to fulfill it in a place where I have some level of for want of a better expression, of equal opportunity. I have a starting path. You see, in Nigeria, everything is, I wouldn't want to say that negatively, but you got to be, the system is rigged to favor some people, you understand? And so even if you're the best, it doesn't mean you get the job. Okay, or if you plan to get to go into business and start something, the number of things that you didn't budget for that come, they're bigger than the number of things you budget for. Okay, and so it's I still stand that it's more difficult to be successful in business in Nigeria than it is to be successful in the UK, because in the UK I know exactly what amount of tax I'm going to pay. I know exactly what date I'm going to pay the tax. I know exactly all of that by virtue of the structures in the system. I heard that in Nigeria now, the tax people just come, they look at your premises, they come to a conclusion of how much business they think you are doing. They write the amount you have to pay for you. I know that's not true in all situations, but that's how it happens for some companies. So that predictability of life, I think, is what I'm actually trying to get to. Just that life is predictable, events are predictable, therefore you can actually do whatever you want to do and know that certain things are a given, and you have a fair chance.
Okay. And once you arrived in the UK, what was life like in the early days of moving to the UK?
Yeah, life was tough. I was absolutely broke, B-R-O-K. Yeah, because one of the interesting things about then was in getting the visa, the UK expected you to provide proof that you had the money, but it wasn't so much that you needed to make a payment as at then. And so what it meant was that even though I had proof of it, I hadn't made the payment, I came to the UK, it meant that I got into the UK with a deficit of £8,000. I already owed the university £8,000. So I came in and started on debt. And after all the getting together and being able to come, the total amount that I had in my pocket when I was coming was £200. Okay, and when I got my bag got stolen in the library, so it meant that even the £200 was stolen. So really I did start out, absolutely on the minus, not even on zero. Lucky, well, I did have a cousin, an older cousin, I call him my uncle in London, that I first stayed with, just for a couple of days before I went over to Teesside. But it was good to have some kind of family, behind here. And of course, in Teesside, we also went to church, so I had one or two family friends in there. So you didn't, so that meant that at least I got to know a community of a few Nigerians and similar-minded people while I was there. So that was useful. But yeah, financially it was pretty tough because ultimately I got excluded from the university for not being up to speed with paying my fees. Uh, so when I got excluded, so it meant I took 6 months off school. And during all of that period, you also have to stay within your visa requirements, you see. So, and once you're in, because you get in and you get the visa for a year, you needed to do some extensions and all of that. And these were significantly big money to do the extensions. At least it was big money to me then. And so it was very, very challenging, sometimes almost harrowing experience, and you needed to keep a job to be able to get some income coming, the kind of jobs I would not have been caught dead doing in Nigeria, working on the factories, stacking shelves in Tesco and all of that. I think there was one morning, I think it was Christmas period, probably the 26th, I had finished, I was walking quite far away from where I lived, so I think I missed the bus, so I needed to wait another 40 minutes for the bus to come. And it was snowing, it was absolutely cold, and I just felt a bit like the prodigal son, and I started thinking, if I were in Nigeria, I'll just be in the warm, and be happy. And at that moment, I think I shed a tear, so yes, it was just very challenging. There are many challenging circumstances that came with that. Yes.
So how did you go then from, obviously you barely have any money, you've now obviously been excluded from university, you're having to work all of these odd jobs. So how did you get to a point where you could go back to university and, start back and that kind of thing?
So my calculation then was that I was excluded so I looked at my visa. I had about 6 months before it ran out. So I just went to work straight away. So it meant I was effectively working full time and doing more than one job. And I started pulling all the monies together. And what I did was I knew when I was in Nigeria that they had this kind of cooperative scheme when we were in Nigeria, in which people put in their salaries and they could get a loan that was 3 times the amount.
Yeah.
So all I did was to prep my mother down in Nigeria that, once it came to about month number 4 or something like that, I'm going to send this amount to you. I need you to get a loan 3 times that amount and send it back to me up here. So really that was what was done. There was a lot of the money that was lost in transferring, and changing currencies and all of that. but it meant that I had a substantial amount to make a payment to the school that was large enough for them to accept me back. Having worked like about 5 months, big money, sent it in. My mother got 3 times that as the loan, then it came back. So that helped me to make a major payment towards going back to the school. I think I probably still ended up finishing paying the total I owed to the school about a year or so after finishing school. But when you're in such situations, you get creative, and you got to do whatever best you can do to survive. So yes, that was how I I ultimately got over that challenge of starting with that deficit. Yeah.
Wow. So I can imagine that there was a lot of negotiations that had to happen with the university. What were these like in terms of even for them to allow you to pay a year after you finished? What was it?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't at the early stages. The system was quite polite. It was a lot of letters, initially, and of course I started making the few payments. But it got to a head, and I had to be called to a meeting, and had to give explain how I planned to pay the rest. The people at the meeting were quite understanding, except one panel member who clearly wasn't convinced at all by my plans, because the reality was at that time I couldn't lay claim to any money coming from Nigeria at that time, so I had to. So I think it was after that I got the exclusion based on that. But the exclusion allowed me those months to go in and do some full-time work, raise some capital, be able to get back to school. I came back, and then I went to finish my placement because that was the first. So when I came back, it was a placement that I returned to because I had finished the coursework. And God was so good because it was a placement. I went in the placement effectively as an assistant quality manager in a biscuit manufacturer. So, and I was in a position, I didn't even know it then, that the quality manager of that company was about to leave. And so they were looking towards employing me on there. So I was effectively put on an assistant quality manager's salary for that region. But the company had a very, very toxic culture, so I knew I couldn't last too much there. They actually hoped I'll stay after finishing. I did stay a little bit, but then I moved on. But yeah, so that was what happened. Yeah.
So at that point now, what did it feel like when you finally got this job and they're paying you like now?
Well, in some ways, I felt like now this is the beginning. I was now stepping into what I had imagined. But there was, I had a little bit, I had more money on my hands, but also I was pretty clear that I did not want to work long in that culture. The other dimension was the fact that I still needed the company to get a work permit for me after I finished the placement. But I do not think they were, I said the culture was toxic. They weren't set up properly enough to do that. So I couldn't plan long term with it. So of course, straight away, I started looking at other opportunities. And then I had found this opportunity then that meant I was going to work in Wales on a 3-year project. So I took that opportunity. It wasn't the best paid, a bit better paid than where I was as assistant quality manager, but I was going there to effectively be quality manager and do a big project. But not only did it pay, it had a separate provision for my professional development over the 3 years. It was a very comprehensive program. It was called the Knowledge Transfer Partnerships. Then they still do them now, and it made the perfect sense. It got me a work permit for the next 3 years, and so I went in there. But of course, getting in there meant I needed to get a place to stay and all of that. And you start paying council tax. In a short while, you realize that I'm really not earning much, but but I knew I was set up on the path to not so much to citizenship, but the path to not be going to home office every 6 months or something like that. I had a 3-year work permit. I had a project to deliver on, to excel in. It was a challenging project. It was an exciting project, and it was developing my skills. So I knew that it was the right decision, and a bit of some of the weight started falling off my shoulder at that stage.
Because even to get to this point, so obviously you had to produce results, even to get that first job and then move into this. So how was that process? Did you have to work harder than you normally would, and how did you manage to even get those opportunities?
I think the opportunity then, because it was a placement, it was a university that kind of helped to get that placement, but it was very, very challenging because I learned all these theories, but then I suddenly found that I was having to be in meetings with Kellogg's and Asta, with them talking about the issues they were facing on the production line, and I had to be involved in providing the solutions to those. For initially, I kind of felt quite a bit overwhelmed, but in a short while, I figured out that they had production managers, they had people who were doing all the various stuff. All I needed to be accountable for was the quality assurance aspect of things. So in some ways, I kind of it was challenging, but I kind of rose up a bit to that challenge. The good thing was that at that stage, I now had some other students that were doing the masters in food technology who were also now working in placement under me. You remember I was 6 months behind, so it meant that I was a bit of their senior, but they weren't doing it as a placement. They were part of the quality assurance team. So it was useful to kind of we just had some back and forth. So we kind of worked a bit as a team. And within a short while, you discovered that the kind of supply relationship that Kellogg's and Asda had was not so much as to punish you for going wrong, but I could actually give a call to their technical managers and say, this is what we're planning to do. What do you think? They gave me a little bit of, so I kind of figured that out early enough in there that, and nobody expected you to have all the solutions, okay? But they expected you to know what you were doing, and they were very helpful. So I found that useful. And once I crossed over into the KTP project, the amount of support was even much, much more because you had a lecturer in the university who was a specialist in the field that could help you with the difficult things, but you had to drive the project. So it was heavy learning, and I think that was the key thing. Straight after university, when you get to a job, sometimes we used to think, oh, it's now time for me to work, but I realized very fast that actually it's time for me to learn how to actually transfer my knowledge into work. And that was a very useful 3-year period, and I did all these other courses that built my management skills, that built some more of my technical skills of that particular food area, learning basic things like developing a personal professional development plan of where I would see myself in 7 years' time. And it's interesting at that time, even though I was starting in 7 years' time, whatever I said, I just said, well, I couldn't see that far, but I would like to be the director of a company. I can't find that document now, but that's exactly where I am, because once you put that picture in, then they'll say, what are the things you are going to do to be able to get there? And so you start listing them. So even when I lost that document somewhere at the back of my head, it was still a bit clear the direction I was going to go. So so that was how that process was. Exceedingly challenging, but once you get that quick humility, get the network of the people that you can work with, and work that consistently, then you should be fine.
Okay, so how was it in the sense that obviously at this point you've only been in the country a little while? Because even when you speak, it sounds like you were born here, you knew what you were doing, you knew how to go next, or where to go. How were you feeling as someone, I've not been here long, still a little bit of a culture shock? You know, how did you navigate through all of this?
Well, I think the first thing, that first place where I worked, it was owned and run by ethnic minorities. So the culture difference was not overtly massive. I think the culture difference really occurred when I was dealing with the Kellogg's and the Asdas as it was. I think the first thing, once I realized that, one of the key things I needed to do was to make sure that, I mean, you'll hear one or two things that are said and you never heard that on the course, you understand? Some of those things either come from the culture or come from the industry, and you needed to learn that. You know? So if I heard anything that was new, I either went back to quickly find out what it was, or I'm humble enough to actually say that, oh, sorry, I'm not sure what you meant by that. And in a short while, I discovered that it's just probably a use of terminology as against me being ignorant of what needed to be done. And once it's clarified, oh, that's exactly what you're saying. Or they refer to a software that every supplier of ours that uses, and I'd never necessarily heard that before. And so once I had some bit of confidence in what I had learned, then I did not have the fear to have things clarified, you know. But I still remember one or two things. I still remember at that early stage when I was project, somebody saying to me, because they were referring to some things I should have, it was even just a TV program that reigned probably in the 80s or something like that. And I had no clue what it was. And the guy said, your education isn't complete. So I first took that seriously, but then when I left out, I said, how could I have known the TV program that was going on in the 80s? So I just made sure that I didn't put that pressure on myself. I think the key thing is if I saw something that was new, the humility to accept that I don't know it, the curiosity to go and research and find out a bit more about it, and to close those knowledge gaps. I mean, the cultural thing will always remain for quite a while. You know, sometimes in the workplace, I remember then they were saying that they had a pub quiz, which wasn't in the pub, but it was like the concept of the pub quiz. And 80% of the questions that I had no clue, because I did not grow up, you know, in the culture. But I think that's one thing that is actually very important for us as immigrants. You got to do your best to engage with the culture. So even if you don't know 90% of the questions, still attend the quiz, you know, and enjoy it and learn. In fact, by the time you go to 3 or 4 of the quizzes, you will see that you can answer a few more questions, you know, than you thought. But unfortunately, when we see that, why will I want to attend a quiz where I can't attend 90% of the questions? So really, the better thing is for me to avoid that. But you see, once you start avoiding the social dimensions of the new culture, then the perception is when they start looking at who they are going to promote to be manager, they want to promote somebody who not only does well at work, but can integrate and interact with everybody else. So you've actually put yourself as a disadvantage. And then you come back home or you go to church and say, oh, they promoted somebody who didn't know as much as me. No, it's because you did not prove yourself to be able to engage with the team consistently at a level where you'll be able to challenge them and interact with them even on a social level. And so this unique ability for us to be able to identify the gaps in our knowledge or in our social interactions and put in place a way of closing that gap, we need to have it, you know, as immigrants in that sense. Because the job I moved on to, then I don't think I probably spent about 6 months and then I got promoted. So which was interesting, you know, for an immigrant in a company that was only white. I think one of the things in that was it was a specialist role. I was probably better positioned than most people on that. But I think it's very important that we look at the environment. We got to, you know, I had an interview with a guy recently who is I interviewed him, who is a fellow of the Chartered Management Institute, and I was asking him, oh, if you're trying to select somebody to become a supervisor or a manager, what do you look for? And he said he wants to see how well they can work with the team, how well they interact with the team, you know, how, and of course their competence. He didn't come with competence first. I said to him, I said, if you are judging them on communication and interaction, the ethnic minority is already at a disadvantage. Probably because, you know, like I still carry on my African accent no matter how much I try to shake it off. I've never really tried to shake it off, you know. But if communication is the thing, then if people are not flowing with my accent, then probably I will stay quiet or stay only with the people who speak, who are from the same descent with me on the shop floor. You know, I look for the South African, I look for anybody that is brown, you know, that can understand me. And therefore, I make myself more and more ineligible for managerial positions, because you must be able to work with a team of diverse kind of people. So, you know, I think that's an important thing. I've almost lost the trail of thought, but that's, I'm sure it answered the question. Yeah.
No, that's completely fine. And you talk, obviously the way you talk a lot, you seem to have built quite a lot of confidence, and at the same time, obviously the humility to accept things, and also the ability to be able to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Where do you think that came from?
Well, the first thing, let me not miss this point. There's the only way that there's growth in anybody's life is a function of how consistently they find themselves in uncomfortable situations. Okay? If you are not in uncomfortable situations, you are not growing. Because if you stay in comfortable situations, it means that you meet up with folks that are like you, that have always been accepting of you and all of that. You see something that you need to try something, or you step away from it. You're not growing. The measurement of growth is the number of uncomfortable situations you find yourself in. But what made me to embrace uncomfortable situations, I really don't know. But I think flying from, like I joke, swimming from across the waters from Nigeria to here already puts you right in the middle of uncomfortable situations. The worst thing I can do for myself is to come into the middle of uncomfortable situations and begin to find the communities of comfort within that. No, I didn't come for comfort. You understand? I come for comfort ultimately. But the route to the kind of comfort I will find, if I came all the way from Nigeria, then I cannot come here to seek comfort on a day-to-day basis. I prefer to seek comfort at a certain stage in my life, but that comfort at that stage in my life is dependent on a lot of consistent discomfort every time while I'm building up to what I want to build up to. You understand? And so I embrace it, and I think everybody should embrace it. That thing that you fear, you have to test yourself in it once in a while. I still shy away from some things, you know. I still won't go bungee jumping or something like that, even though I'm trying to do that. But especially professionally speaking, and in terms of making the way forward, you see, this is the thing. When you come in as an immigrant, the key difference between you and somebody who was born here, and I get reminded of that each of the few times I return to Nigeria. Okay, so when I'm in Nigeria and I need to get something done, for argument's sake, in the Ministry of Education. My first thought process is, who do I know that works in the Ministry of Education? Okay, and usually I will by one or two things within my network, I will find somebody who works in the Ministry of Education enough for me to say, can I get some help in solving this? But this is the problem. When you come to the UK, if you have something to be done with education, you really don't know nobody in that ministry or whatever. And therefore, You have to start that whole process straight. And God bless you, you meet the first person there, and the person is racist. Then you kind of get knocked back at that first point, and you say, oh no, I would never get through this, you know, so maybe I should do something else that is different. Whereas if you were in Zambia, for example, you probably know somebody, you know somebody. Now, initially, I first thought that, oh yeah, things are always very structured in the UK. You have to go through, but really, it happens a lot in the UK too. If you do know somebody who works there, it might not mean you bypass the process. It might mean that you get clearer instructions about the process. So when we refuse to step into those uncomfortable situations, make uncomfortable conversations, and get new friends that come from those uncomfortable situations, we reduce our social network. And that social network defines your influence and your ability to access what is available in the system. And as long as that network remains shrunken to people that look like us and feel like us, then we will stay largely where the critical mass of those people stay, which unfortunately is at the bottom of the ladder. Because remember, once we come in, we start at the bottom of the ladder. That's not a problem. That happens in every country you migrate to. Where the sin occurs is for you to stay, you know, at the bottom of that ladder. And so you keep getting yourselves, into networks by putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations that you talk about, that gives you the ability to create a network that makes, for the absence of a better expression, life easier for you. That means you have all the information. You know, Colin Powell, the former chairman of Joint Chief of Staff in America, he said, the first thing you have to do when you find yourself in a problem is to get all the information that you can about that problem, and get all that information from all the network that you have about that problem. Don't even start solving the problem first. Get all the information. And therefore, if you are in a new situation or something like that, you got to get that through your networks. And that network, if it's only a network of people that came from your country or people that look like you or only immigrants, that's the quality of the information you will get. You need to be positioned to get all the information that you need about that situation. And I believe that positively networking and putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation is actually the definition of networking in itself. And I think that will make sure that the outcomes you have are much better than the people who don't do that.
Amazing. Hey, I got lost thinking about exactly what you were saying. Because that's a problem a lot of us have, where we don't want to step into our uncomfortable situations. We want to stay within our comforts, and you know, it feels nice. You're safe in that, but you start to see that, you know, when you step out, things start to happen. So one of the things that you once said to me, I know that obviously you went on to get several different quite high up there managerial positions, and I remember once you told me about traveling the world, and just tell us a bit about that, because I know you've done your fair share of travel.
Yeah, yes, I have. Yeah, well, I think that's the nature of the job. In that role, it meant that I needed to go and do some work in China, been to quite a good number of places in Europe, in the US, gone back even to do some bit of work in Africa, and just even strange places like Mexico. And that's over the course of things. And these are the kind of opportunities that open up when you step into that uncomfortable zone and seek to step up in life. You understand, and seek to do better than you could in life, and those things. Traveling around the world also, it opens your world. it opens opportunities. You meet new people, but as long as you keep on with that curiosity of stepping into uncomfortable situations, because you can travel the world and still go there only keeping quiet and getting to those places and looking for where the black people are. And if you don't see black people, you can keep quiet for the 3 days you spend in there, and you get on the flight and get back. So the curiosity to learn must always go with you and every time. And I think it just opened up my understanding of the world. It opened up my ability to think that I am capable of creating a business for myself. I had the situation which I must have told you. It was I was flying from China, and I had this guy who was seated next to me, who was a successful entrepreneur, and we got talking, and he asked us some very important questions. I think at that time I was doing a PhD, and he said, so we're talking enterprise and all of that. So you keep talking about all these enterprise things. How in the world are you still doing a PhD? Why aren't you doing the enterprise thing? And I remember that being a catalyst, as in my journey of entrepreneurship. But even something as that simple, once I'm in the aircraft, except you really don't want to talk to me, if you're unlucky enough to sit by me, no matter how intimidating you look or anything, I really want to know, why in the world are you on that aircraft? What are you going to do? Are you just going for a social visit or stuff like that? So and it's interesting. I remember, this is a bit cheeky, but I remember, there's some people that are a bit kind of show off. So I was speaking with somebody I know, and he said, oh yeah, because he trained to become a pilot, or something like that. So, he was telling, oh, I've been to this country, been to that country, been to that. So he said to me the total number of countries he had been to at that stage. I don't know what the number was, whether it was 8 or 9, but I had been to those same number of countries, as at that time. And one of the beauties of this is this, and I know that so many people have also been to other countries, but what made it unique was that in all those countries I went to, I never paid for my flight out of my own pocket, because they were all work related. You understand? So somebody paid for it, each time that you went there. And these are some of the things that we need to know. Sometimes we judge ourselves. Oh, how successful? Some people say, oh, you are successful by the number of countries you have visited. Yes, but people can approach that in two different ways. Somebody could have visited 10 countries by paying for holidays to go in those 10 countries. You know how expensive paying for holidays are. But you can visit those 10 countries by making sure that you're positioned to either add value as a business person or rise to management in the organization, such that you can achieve those without having to do that out of your own pocket. So very important, you got to get the vision. And you got to step into those situations that make sure that you rise up in management. If you're in employment, don't be that black person that says, oh, they will always give it to a white person. Or something like, oh, the amount they're paying a supervisor, no, it's not worth this thing. I'll just stay here. I don't want to become a supervisor. Every time that opportunity opens, you got to step into it. Otherwise, you sit down and you're complaining. Instead of all the complaining, go there and be at the decision-making level. For those who are not in what's it called, that are not working, you got to entrepreneur something. You got to, I always say that the highest level of being a man or a woman, being made in the image of God. You remember when God made the plants and made the animals and made everybody and gave them life, okay? But it was only man that they said was made in the image of God. So what really is the image of God? The image of God is the ability to create things that didn't exist. And of all those animals and all of that, only man can create a business, because he is the only one that can create something that didn't exist before he was there. That is what it means to be in the image of God. So I believe entrepreneurship, even if it's sweet that you are selling, you are existing at the highest level of what God made us to be, okay? And you might not want to be an entrepreneur. You might, if you're in work, but even wherever you are in life, lead something. So these are my three mantra: manage something, entrepreneur something, lead something. Whether it's in your church choir or whatever, just where there's an opportunity to lead, step into it, because it helps you to get the skills that make you to be successful in life. Empathy, understanding the needs of people, and creating what will fill those needs, and as long as you are not sitting down in life and just looking after yourself and moaning about yourself, you will make progress. Because if you make progress and advance in management, advance in entrepreneurship, advance in leadership, then you will always be a better person than you were last year.
Amazing. So you've obviously you've done various different jobs, various different careers. So at what point did you actually transition into business?